Okay, welcome back to the Never Iron Anything Comics Review podcast, and our Christmas special is also episode 172. Joining me again is our favourite co-host from Scotland and occasionally a land of penguins. It's Alan Henderson. How you doing, man? You right?
Good things. Yes, no, good to be back. It seems like a long time.
It did. I was looking back. When was the last one? I think it was Rupert, wasn't it? Was it Rupert we did?
Rupert was certainly the last one we did. Yes.
And then before that was Green Arrow, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's been a year. Let's just
No way.
for us both. I think. Well, no. Sorry. What I mean, this year.
Oh, sorry.
12 months have been a year.
Yeah, it's been a busy year, isn't it? You're like now Mr. Snake Hips. I'm sure there's something going on with you haven't told me about, but you're a racing snake now, my friend. It's
Yeah, I'm pounding that treadmill. That treadmill.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I'm just the treadmill before you start your story. Yeah.
What's the phrase I heard the other day? Pumpkin pounder. I like that phrase. That was quite funny for ginger girls. What?
That you know my missus is ginger, so
I'd forgotten that, but yeah.
It's 'cause you tabled next to her for a long time.
Yeah. We had a boozy curry, didn't we? Yeah. Good man. Good.
So so to say it's our Christmas special.
Yeah.
Given that we gathered this time last year to discuss an episode of the Brave and the Bold, which is obviously the Batman meets or Batman with.
Yeah.
So I said, or you said, what shall we discuss? And I thought, well, having done Brave and the Bold, we should go to see what I would call the sister book.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's very cool. It's slightly later, isn't it? It started slightly later.
It starts slightly later, yeah. So it's a DC Comics Presents, which is one of these Superman with books. And I've selected one, and I'm going to say this early on because I said it to you quite early, where it's Superman with, and I believe it to be the character that has crossed over with more comic book characters than any other.
It's surprisingly, it isn't, because we've done a bit of a dig, which we'll talk about later, and he does turn up a lot, doesn't he? More than I remembered, actually.
Well, I was going to say, I actually think in many ways it's a canon character for DC Comics.
Yeah.
But has appeared with Marvel characters, has certainly appeared with Archie and all the Archie characters.
There is a certain amount of discussion around the fact that he may be a mutant as well.
So I've seen him tomorrow. He's met the Mask in Dark Horse.
Didn't know that one, right?
And basically numerous others. And of course, being the season, this is DC Comics Presents number 67, Superman and Santa Claus.
Yes. Cover date March 1984. Did you want to reel through the creators on it?
So the cover is basically a kind of who's who for the 1980s,
really
early
is.
1980s
Yeah.
DC. Because the cover is Garcia Lopez, and the writer is, or co-plotter at least, is Len Wein with E. Nelson Birdwell, and then the illustrators are Swan and Murphy Anderson. Who else would you want to draw Superman at that period in time? Then you've got people like Ben Oa on lettering, and Jean Delagio is the colorist. And of course, editor supreme at the time was Julie Schwartz.
Yeah. And cover artist is someone different, isn't it? It's not Swanderson, as they call him.
No, it says it not Garcia Lopez. Have I got that wrong?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, is that what you said? Sorry, I might have missed it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the cover artist is Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, who I know you're a massive fan of, aren't you?
Well, let's actually say he is Mr. DC.
He is, isn't he? Yeah.
Or certainly for that period, and yeah, the design guide basically is, and speaking on the cover, it literally is Santa in the background with Superman facing in against Toyman. It's no real surprise that Toyman is the villain that Superman and Santa would go up against. But what I love is the fact that Santa's reindeer has a great big S drawn on it. To suggest it's the super sleigh or Santa's super sleigh as a sort of logo that comes with it. What I will say is the elves that are drawn on the cover are slightly different from the elves that feature inside the book, and we'll maybe come on to that as we get into it.
Yeah, strangely old man scary, the elves inside, aren't they? There's something quite peculiar about them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But
I also always think that Garcia Lopez does Superman a bit slimmer than Swan. Swan, it changes a little bit. You know, he's very much more barrel chested, less defined in the earlier days of Swan, but he becomes sort of slightly more defined around this period. But I always think he's a sleeker Superman on the cover there.
yes, um, certainly a lot less muscular around the shoulders, which is the way that Swan ends up drawing him. Um, I think facially as well, he actually Garcia seems to draw him slightly younger in a weird way. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
why. It just has that sort of feel about it. But
I
yeah.
don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I've just
Um,
watched a film about Christopher Reeve, but I'm feeling Reeve in that face as well, a bit
mm.
more than elsewhere, perhaps.
Well, and obviously it is that exact time slot
Yeah,
in terms of
yeah.
when everything was about, or what would be this be about Superman 3
I
possibly by
guess
this point.
so. Yeah, there was a little gap, wasn't there, between 2 and 3, and then obviously 4. So, Do you want me to go through the story, or
Um, yeah, you go on then, and I'll
okay?
chip in. So,
Superman discovers a hypnotized child. This has got all sorts of things going on, man. You know it has. With a toy
yeah,
trying to rob a pavement Santa. The kid's sort of been mesmerised by someone, and Superman takes him up to he wraps him in his cloak and takes him to the Fortress of Solitude. But he's hit with a ray from a toy that the kid's carrying, and he wakes up in Santa's place, Santa's house. And then it's all a big plan. This is a very basic storyline. It's all a big plan from Toyman, and they go on about defeating Toyman and also delivering presents and fixing the kid. That's
or
kind of
was
what
it
I
all
think.
a yes, or was it all just a dream?
Yeah,
Because it does go, is Santa real or not?
yeah, yeah.
Um, and what I hadn't realized until I read this issue. Now I'm going to tell you that I've never read this issue before in my life.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Or if I have, God knows when.
yeah.
It's 983. I would have been 11, so I wouldn't
Right.
have. But I had not appreciated until I read this that you had styled yourself after Tom.
Right. This is enough of this. Right, because later on
There's
I'm going to get into
there.
what a massive nonce he is. But the I will
Well,
give you. I will give you the Barnet is almost on par with my gorgeous chocolate
uh,
waterfall.
what I'm going to say is, if you jump to page 7 and the very final paragraph, if you
Right, you've
just
been
lean
trolling
back
me
in
about
your,
this for days.
you lean back in your chair and tap your fingers together. I'm sorry, I see you all over page 7 is in terms of it.
Oh right,
So yes,
fuck you and your concrete kite. The
but at the end of the day, as you say, this is a sort of it's Christmas. It's got all the things that I find that are wrong with the Superman story in some ways, in that it depowers Superman and then says, right, what we're going to do about that, and it's let's use a kryptonite ray just because that's what we've got to do to move. That's the MacGuffin to move the storyline along. Um, but it's silliness and it's fun and it's got bits in it where you just go, yeah, that's what comics should be about for kids reading comics.
yeah,
And that's exactly what you want from a book like this, where it is a kids team up book for saying have a bit of fun. Um, and it allows a lot of action scenes to take place and a lot of little snippets of all the things that Curt Swan is actually really good at. Of the belief of what a robot was in the early 1980s versus
yeah,
what robots are now. It's
yeah,
and there's pages in here where you find the toys and the toys are robot toys and things like that, and you're just like going, yeah, that's what everyone believed
yeah.
robots were going to be, and
And I know you
that
you you
that's
you
100%
texted
Swan.
you texted me about this saying this is evidence that you don't need to decompress a storyline as well because it's a great little story. I think we were talking about some recent releases that are 5-issue series, which are
Yeah,
let's be honest, suffer from somewhat amount of padding, but this one doesn't. It's just a good cracking in and out, as these team up books tended to be, in and out, good
they were all
story.
they were all one and dones,
Yeah,
or
in the most part.
nearly all
I think, yeah,
dones. I think there was one or two maybe that went to two issues, but generally it was one and dones. All right, Silent Night was a five-issue miniseries that came out last year, and that's the Silent Night Returns, which is another is the Batman Santa Claus story that's currently
yeah,
being issued by DC. Which again I've only read the first issue. That it's good enough and it's all that sort of stuff. But you're like
it's
going,
okay.
why does it
Yeah,
need to be?
yeah,
Why does it need to be five issues? Well, it's five issues because they want to get a trade out of it, obviously. But yeah, again, you're left going, that's not. Um, again, we'll talk about it perhaps. So, when DC have also done a special for Christmas or for the season, um, which is a collection of five or six, three or four, really short stories.
yeah.
And it works equally well, I think, in terms of that's how we should be doing some of these things for getting to kids and getting to people to read good little anthologies. Um, but yeah, this is so it is a book of its time,
Yeah.
but it's it was a fun reread where they
Yeah.
go there's things that it's going this is silly.
I'm
The,
massively prepared to take any kind of outlandish leap that Curt Swan
mm,
leads me on. It's there's something about his artwork that, as a kid reading it when Mr. Mistleplix turns up and the building he works in is turned into a newspaper, or he drags a planet out of space, and I'm totally prepared to go on a ride with Swan. He's just that dude for me. He's the Silver Age in the Bronze Age for me.
oh, yeah, I mean, he defined the character.
Yeah,
Yes, Sugar and Pista create the character, but for that whole big period, he then defined the character. And you have to say that the vast majority of what people think of with the character since then is based on Swan. The other thing I think he's really good at is he's very good at keeping a proportion of scale of the character within the page. So you look at bits where he's a big guy. The
mm.
Superman is a big guy and a big chunky guy. Um, I'm reading something else at the moment that Mike Allred's done, where he draws him as a really thin,
Right.
lightweight person, and I'm like, going, no, I don't.
Yeah,
This it should be big and chunky, and but without being a ridiculous bodybuilder
yeah.
type
He's like
look.
the circus strongman to me sometimes,
Mm,
but fitter, I suppose.
yeah,
He looks like a real strongman rather than
yeah,
a bodybuilder, I suppose.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's your Charles Atlas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So let's rewind a bit out. Let's talk about a
yeah.
couple of things. So this came out in a period where we had this and the Brave and the Bold, which you've already mentioned. But over at the competition, we had Marvel Team Up and 2-in-1, which was
Mhm.
mostly Spider-Man. It started off with some Human Torch, and then the Thing teaming up. And every month I could get 4 comics, which often introduced someone I'd never heard of, and were just a single story. Marvel Team Up had a few ongoing threads, but it tended to be a different guest each issue. I really miss that, and I know they've tried Marvel Team Up a few times and it hasn't worked. I'm just trying to think. And we've had a few Brave and Bolds, haven't we? Attempts.
Brave and Bold attempts, and there was a title called, I think I remember off the top of my head, DC Universe for a while.
Right.
And arguably, so what DC have done when they tried it again more recently was things like when they relaunched Showcase. I say relaunch Showcase. I am probably going back 20 years when they
Yeah.
last did
No.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. At least. Yeah.
Um, well, yeah. Sorry, relating to things like that, mixed flair. I did have to look up when the Lobo Paramilitary Christmas
Yes.
special came out because I was like, oh, that'll be 20 years ago. No, 33 years ago that came out. Anyway, so let me go back to the Showcase one. So when DC relaunched Showcase for PC, it was doing things like the team ups and pieces and that. But what they did then was actually say, right, we'll make this more of an anthology title that runs over a number of, I think they did it in 12-month cycles. So they could say, right, okay, you've got a story, but we're going to split it into 5 or 6 pieces and roll it into that across that 12 months. So you've got a rolling piece. Um, and that way they were doing that whole thing about, yes, you're introducing you to new characters, and because you're buying this to read the Etrigan the Demon story. But while it's here, there's also a Booster Gold story, or
Okay.
there's also a
Yeah.
Vixen story, or whatever. Um, and I think they kind of more did it that way. But we are at the point now where titles like this just don't work, or they're perceived not to work, because either they don't fit the on sale collection approach in
Yeah.
terms of that, because it's one and done stories, or they they don't work in the concept of, say, people get so hung up at times about continuity, where
And
none of this is continuity.
multiverses. I would like to add the word
Yeah,
multiverse, yeah, which
you
is
know,
the bane of my life at the moment.
where this is a story and gone, and all the DC stories, all the DC comics present, all the um, Brave and Bolds that I see is they were generally just, this has just happened. This is just a
Yeah.
story that was being retold. It's that telling a story around the campfire may or may not have happened. Who knows? But this is it. And we seem to have lost that in the big two, at least, of going right. These are the ways to tell some of those stories. Um,
Yeah, I think
there is a
that's the
Brave and the
key
Bold.
there, that they use the hook of this character will be in the new Marvel team-up because he's then going to be in Spider Boy or something. And you're like, no,
Mm,
just have a character we haven't seen for a while and let them walk away again, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Um, I think so. DC are doing it a little bit now with things like the new World's Finest series.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
The
that's
new
Mark
plan.
Wade, that one. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
And it's very much a case of, it's kind of like it's standalone. Does its own thing. We've got silly stories to tell, and we'll just do them and get them out.
Yeah,
And they did a Teen Titans miniseries in that
of
concept
course
as
they did.
well,
I remember that now, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was great. But again, needed to be a 5 issue miniseries because that
Yeah.
then fits a trade and so on and so forth. Um, so yeah, I think we're missing it as being standalones. I think what we get now is anthologies instead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
What's your thoughts on the generally in relation to? Have you got any memories from a kid from Christmas specials? I'll roll mine out while you're thinking. But mine would be the Defenders. Was it Defenders versus the Avengers having a snowball fight? That was pretty much the whole story. It was a little bit of extra in one of the Treasury editions I read. Marvel. I can't remember the name of it now. They had two out at Christmas, and it was just them having a snowball fight. And I remember thinking, "This is fucking great," you know.
yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that was done through the Batman animated style
Ah, of course.
pieces,
Yeah, yeah,
where there were some great stories that were done there, both from a Justice League perspective and from, partially because they had that. I mean, when you were doing the original Harley Quinn story like that, you could make silly stuff out of that, where she looks like a Santa character anyway,
yeah,
so there was stuff there. Um, it's a weird one as well, partially because of the way we used to get comics, and like you
yeah.
so often. You know what, and partially because the way I get my pile of to be reads and when do I get to them type thing. It's unusual for me to read the Christmas comic at Christmas,
Yeah,
but often because you've got so much to get through. All right, from my side,
yeah.
I'm
No,
like,
me too, man.
I must
Yeah,
get
yeah,
through all these. And you go, all right, I've now got to this. Here we are. It's March, April, May. I
yeah.
finally got to the Christmas book. But
But the
hey,
way we
because
used to
it's
get
got
we used to get comics in newsagents. It was 3 months anyway.
well,
You know.
as this, this is cover dated March
Oh
for
yeah,
that exact reason. That's what I expected to land. It would have been in the comic shops in December. But I think this is where it's interesting from a UK perspective as well, where children or went from our generation. Um, it was all about the annual. And I know
yeah,
which ties back into our Rupert conversation
yeah. Very
previously,
much
where
so.
it's a case of saying, yeah, you got an annual, and that it's what some of that would just be reprints of whatever stories were there from previously. Um, so it wasn't necessarily a Christmas story because that's what we'd been chosen to go into, and that's what you end up saying. That's what I read as part of that side of things.
There
Um,
might be like a pin up of Dredd dressed as Santa saying, have a drock Christmas or something. There was a bit of that going on, wasn't there, in some of them? But yeah, a lot of the stories weren't Christmas stuff. Some the occasional ones were. Yeah, British comics did it well, didn't they? Christmas, actually, thinking back on it, there was always a Whoopee with a Christmas. There was always a Dandy and a Beano with a Christmas cover, them snowball fighting or something.
It helps when you're doing a weekly,
Yeah,
when your title's a weekly title, so you can actually go, right, this is, we can specifically hit the date that we want to, which in itself, is down to strong editorship of saying, right, we're going to pull the strings to make things happen at the right times in the right places.
yeah.
Um,
Well, let's.
as a, we've
Sorry.
mentioned Silent Night. I was going to say, we have mentioned Silent Night. One thing I will give DC a shout out to, because they need shot in other places, is they have gone. Look, this will be 5 issue series in the 5 weeks building up to Christmas. It's clearly that whoever's editing that has said, I'm going to sort this out months in advance and have it all in the package ready to go.
Good.
And it goes out bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
Well, it did last year. Let's just and
Yeah, it's up to 3. I saw 3 on the shelf when I was in the shop on Saturday. So
let's assume they'll get all 5 out on time. Which,
yeah,
when you consider there are other miniseries that are kicking around from DC at the moment, where I think Gargoyles of Gotham, the one that they did that was the I forget the guy's name. Raphael something
Albuquerque.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's I think issue 3 of that is over 6 months late.
No.
And you're like,
I was wondering about that one. Yeah.
You're a mini series. How on earth do you not have that all packaged up?
What was the one?
Before you even start,
yeah,
you go, right, it's all done.
have it in the bag. Eamon was moaning about, and rightly so, about an image book that I think it's an image book where we're having to wait 6 months for the final issue to come out or something, 4 months for the final issue to come out, and you're like, what? Just the gap between 7 and 8, which is when it finishes, is this like massive gap. Like, come on, guys.
And that's where you kind of go, is it any wonder that we're losing comic shops left, right, and centre?
Yeah, it's a shame, man. Yeah.
Because things like that do not help them. Because you're left going, oh, I've had to order this stock, months ago, and now it's going to come in. Nobody's going to want it because everyone's going to have forgot what the original piece
was.
And
I'll wait for the trade now. Or, I'll read it digitally or something, won't they? Yeah. Well, while we're on the roll of other Christmas comics, before we go back and talk a little bit about Swan, etc., I thought we might go through some. I did a little list of some that you might like. So you've mentioned the Silent Night one. We had obviously Lobo, which you mentioned a minute ago, Lobo's Paramilitary Christmas Special, which is Keith Giffen, Alan Grant, Simon Bisley.
Arguably the best.
Yeah.
I think there's very little tops that, if I'm brutally honest.
For those that haven't read it, Lobo is hired by the Easter Bunny to kill Santa. That's it writes itself, doesn't it? Let's face it.
And somebody made a fan film of it.
No, I didn't know that.
On YouTube, you can find it. It lasts about 10 minutes. It's about 10-minute version of it on YouTube. Again, highly recommend it. It's actually really, really well done.
I'll have a look. Oh, brilliant. There's also the Hellblazer where John snorts Santa. Is that right? He snorts him, I think. We had Cancelled Comics Cavalcade, which was Michael Fleischer. We've spoken about him in the past. He was an interesting character. And Jack Kirby. Sandman rescues Santa from kidnappers. That was quite a good one. We had 1998 DC's Holiday Bash. Ty Templeton tells the story of how Santa delivers a lump of coal to Darkseid every year. That's a great idea.
That's one of the ones that's done in the animated style. Ty Templeton's a great guy. Who recently recovered from cancer, so it's quite good.
Oh, wow. Okay. Justice League 60, Mark Waid, Cliff Rathburn, features Santa as a member of the Justice League, as told by Plastic Man, which is quite interesting. We've also got Krampus, which is Grant Morrison, Dan Mora. I had forgotten that was Dan Mora, because Dan Mora's now Mr. DC, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's very much so. He's
another dude who can do 2 comics a month.
Oh, yeah. Come back to that.
Yeah. We've got Superman and Santa go way back, actually. They go back to Superman's Christmas Adventure in 1940s by Siegel and co. Who else we got here? Maximum Press. I know you're a big fan. Santa the Barbarian from Rob Liefeld and Dan Frager. I do not own that. We had Santa Fights Jesus in Battle Pope by Kirkman. I'd forgotten that one as well. Dell Comics had an annual Santa comic, so they're kind of their own annual. It came out at Christmas every year from Dell. God bless them. If there's something to be pimped, they'll do it. She-Hulk, I think it was Sensational She-Hulk, the John Byrne series, had him as Nick St. Christopher, who was a detective, and his useful cunning ability was he could tell who'd been naughty. So that was a good job as a detective. He in one comic he used the Infinity Gauntlet to help him deliver presents. Nah, I'm not keen on that. He's got an entry in the Marvel handbook of the handbook of the Marvel Universe, believe it or not.
Yep.
It's implied in one comic that he's a mutant. He's played, as part of his origin in the Marvel Universe, he played poker against Odin and won something from him. I think it might be whatever it is that he rides around in. He teams up with Howard the Duck, famously. Deadpool is also hired to kill him. That's a bit of a take on it. And Doom at one point becomes Santa in a Byrne drawn comic, which looks great. He puts on the whole hood and everything.
All right.
So Doctor Doom. Yeah, there's some really good stuff about it. And that is a dip in the ocean of his appearances.
I was going to say the one you didn't mention, which again is a Marvel one that I'm sure you've got somewhere, is the adaptation of Santa Claus the movie.
Yeah. Is that the one with Dudley Moore in? Is Dudley Moore in that?
Yes.
Yeah, isn't he?
Yes.
That was a weird choice. I was listening to him doing Pete and Dud and talking about how he was taking lobsters out of Mary Shelley's cunt or something. And next thing you know, he's in Santa Claus the movie.
I'm pretty sure it was Derek and Clive, not Pete and Dud. But yeah,
you're right. Yeah, sorry, Derek and Clive. Yeah, you must have had that on tape as a kid, didn't you?
Yes. Well, I didn't have it, but I've heard it.
Yeah, that's the one with. I think it's on.
I could never admit to owning it.
I think it's on Spotify. That's the one with Everything Gives Me the Horn. Yeah, Cracks in the Pavement. Yeah.
And this year's publication is DC's, and this is where I have to tell you, there's I have issues with the lettering on the cover.
Okay.
Of DC's Batman Smells Robin Laid an Egg.
Yeah,
right?
that was a weird. Yeah.
Because
that's out this week, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, but it does read like DC's Batman Smells, and then because they've got a sort of like a fog thing, you don't really see the laid an egg, and I'm like, Batman Smells Robin, does he?
Yeah, that's what I thought it was called. Yeah.
No. Batman Smells Hallmark, Robin Laid an Egg. Now again, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 really short stories. There's some good, there's some bad, some indifferent. Very nice Doctor Midnight story by Franco
Francavilla, is it?
Francavilla, yeah. So it's really, really nice. Silly, fun, give it to the kids, apart from the fact it costs $9.99, so God knows what that actually costs in pounds and pence.
Did you buy that one, or is it on the app you're reading it?
I bought that one. Luddite Henderson. I mean, I do read stuff off the app, and not new stuff. Still games. Yeah, buy it. Just because. Anyway, back to DC Comics Presents.
Yeah, so let's talk about some Curt Swan. So for those that don't know, you should know Douglas Curtis Swan, born the 17th of February 1920, sadly died 17th of June 1996, born in Minneapolis. He worked overseas as a GI in World War II for the 34th Division as an artist for the Stars and Stripes magazine. We hear about that Stars and Stripes magazine all the time when we do characters from this age. Yeah.
So there's a really one of the YouTube stories I was watching somebody talk about this and talk about things, and it's the fact that people who drew comics in the late 70s or the 60s and 70s generally had been to war.
Yeah.
And therefore they knew what a hero was.
Yeah.
As in, you didn't need to you didn't need an anti-hero. You didn't need to come up with a weird twisted story, because it's a case of we've seen heroism. We know what heroism is. We've been involved, and probably those that experienced Vietnam. But it was a case of that meant that, and person who presented this YouTube video was on to describe it a different way of saying they knew what America was.
Right.
And
yeah.
I was a bit down that route at that point, and I'm like, that's not quite right. But I did get this. You're right. Anybody I think that went to war or was involved in the services, particularly in World War II, brings something back to that in terms of their books. So saying this is how we present heroism, and knowing the hero is the hero and wears the white hat and gets on and stand out with that and does these things.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that comes through the Curt Swan work where you kind of go, yeah, Superman is the good guy, and
Yeah.
I'm never going to.
He's the guy who will never let you down. He's the guy you can trust. Which is where I'm a little bit on Grant Morrison's side when he talks about the Alan Moore issue, where he says Superman doesn't cry. And I kind of get what he means by that, especially after what you've just said there. Yeah, he's the opposite of Batman, isn't he? Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
For anyone, for this one.
Yeah, for anyone who's seen The Sopranos, go and look at if you haven't, go and look at the character Johnny Sack, because he is the spitting image of Curt Swan. If they ever make a movie about Curt Swan's life, I want Johnny Sack playing it. He looks exactly like him. He was mostly self-taught, actually. He did study at the Pratt Institute before working in DC and some advertising. His first work was on Boy Commandos. His first Superman was on Superman 51, March 1948. March 1948, all the way up to Crisis. That is incredible, isn't it?
It's crazy and consistent throughout that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, massively consistent. Yeah. But that's the good thing about him for me. That's the reliability of the Superman and Action Comics at the time. You knew what you were getting. Occasionally you get a little bit of Gil Kane. Occasionally you get a little bit of Kurt Schaffenberger. They're just so consistent.
And the thing is, you see up to Crisis, it's beyond that as well. And Crisis was when he was kind of taken out of actually doing monthly books and all that.
He was shown the door a little bit, which was sad, wasn't it?
Yeah. In the Curt Swan Life in Comics, the book that came out from Vanguard, it goes on to include a lot of the commissions and things that he did after that through 1993, for example.
Yeah.
Where again, it's just the touch of pencil and the touch of the way that he produces work. You're like, that's what a hero should look like, and that's what Superman exactly should look like.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. Massively. I mean, when I think of Superman, I don't even think of Christopher Reeve. Although he is so imprinted on my young mind, I think of Swan's character. If somebody just said to me, "Oh, Superman," it would come up in my head a 1970s, 1980s Curt Swan drawing of him, I think. You?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's for me it'd be Swan, then Garcia Lopez, then because I always remember the mullet, Dan Jurgens.
Yeah.
That's and it's Byrne kind of gets lost in that in a weird way because despite the fact that
he's a little bit down the ladder for me,
character.
Yeah.
But it's not. He's not the canonical. That's the one you want to call upon as being the design. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that Byrne thing because I don't mind Byrne's. I like a lot. I love Byrne, but the thing is he's Byrne's Superman to me somehow. He's a different because we have that sort of depowered restart, blah 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 thing we had from Man of Steel. He feels like a different person to the Superman that I saw Curt Swan and Garcia Lopez done. But by the time you get back into the Triangle period, I kind of feel like he's back again somehow. Yeah, and I don't mind Man of Steel. I quite enjoyed it. It was a little bit decompressed for me and a little bit underdrawn, but it's good enough. And
then you've got other, more recently, obviously the Frank Quietly pieces as well. But again, with being Scottish, I'm like going, you've drawn Desperate Dan, made him into Superman just because of the way he draws the chin. As in he's gone right, he's a big guy, and I always struggle a little bit with him with Frank Quietly doing Superman in that. Frank has such a light touch, and you're wanting it to be such a bold and strong character.
Yeah.
And I know the All-Star Superman was written to be, again, it was a story about Superman being weakened, and therefore it worked. But it's there's an interesting balance to be struck with where the lines are.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how much the artist impacts on the character and how much how old we were and what kind of mood we are when we see it, but Quietly is more Quietly than Superman for me, if that's a strange thing to say, if you get me.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
I appreciate it, and I very much enjoyed that series. It's just a bit, Yeah, it's weird. But if I'd have seen that when I was 12, it probably wouldn't be like that. It would be different, Yeah, so just go back to Curt. He didn't initially work well with Mort Weisinger, as I think a number of people didn't. So he nipped off and did some advertising work for a while, but decided to come back again. Around that period, he also tried to do his own newspaper strip, which was obviously massively financially a good thing to do at the time. And he called Yellow Hair, but I think it only lasted a year from memory. And he came back. He did, Superboy was a big love of his, Superman. But he, like we just said, he was sort of slightly dumped unceremoniously when the sort of new wave came in.
Yeah, and as were many others at that point, sadly, where it was a case of here's the changing of the guard, and we're going to do it as a harsh change of the guard. You know what? Maybe it was needed at that point.
Yeah.
DC needed to completely reinvent itself at the point of Crisis.
They were seen as old-fashioned, weren't they, compared to Marvel at the time?
Yeah.
And I think he was a big part of what that perception was, I think, possibly.
Yeah. The thing is, nowadays, we would have said, right, fine, create a legacy line and go off and do some legacy books and, give them whatever. I think because we talked about 2 books a month. As part of his work ethic, again, this comes out in the Vanguard book, the Life of Comics. He only worked 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And he spent 3 days a week basically for the family. Well, 2 days a week with the family and 1 day a week on the golf course, apparently. But you're like going, right, so there's 4 days a week. Apparently he did like super long days.
Right.
That,
Don't we all, man?
60.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But it was very much a case of, he went, no, I've got family time, I've got this time. But he's doing 4 days a week and producing 2 books a month. Because he was doing DC Comics Presents and probably Action Comics or one of the Superman books. And you're thinking, so that's, what artists are out there today that are doing that sort of level of churn? It's not as many, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Again, going through the book here, you can tell there's a lot of panels with no backgrounds whatsoever. But there doesn't need to be. And that's the weird and wonderful thing about it.
And Murphy Anderson worked well with him. I found Perez's inks on him and The Man of Tomorrow, I found them a little bit too overwhelming sometimes. There was a bit too much Perez, but they called them Swanderson, didn't they? They were sort of an early joining of 2 words. But Murphy Anderson's inks were delightful. He must, I think, this is just an interpretation, I think Anderson adds some of the muscle definition in the inking that we don't see when other inkers work on Swan's work. But it's fine. It almost modernises it a little bit. It might even have been an editorial dictate, so making a bit more bodybuilder than strong bloke.
At this point, as you say, there is the overlay of what did Christopher Reeves look like at the time in terms of his look and feel. There's some interesting art choices actually in the book itself.
Okay.
If I turn you to page 8, where this is so Superman is coming round and coming back or waking up, and there's this weird hatching set of panels and I'm like going, that seems very modern as a technique and an approach.
The panel structure seems slightly unusual for him as well, in a way.
Yes, everything's at a weird diagonal in terms of it. So that's that's great from a sort of weird wonderful thing. Though there's some weird, there are some weird page layouts again, so like page 17 is one of those where there's a sort of diamond shape in terms of the panel structure. But that's a wonderful page of going action, 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 action.
Yeah.
There's 6 panels there, and every single one of them has got action in it coming from a different angle and if you want just a page to go, here's one of the reference guides for what does the character look like. It's almost all there. It's like here's him from below looking up. Here's him from this side. Here's him from behind. In an action pose. Here's him flipping over. But it's and it's all those sorts of things.
Page 15, if you don't mind, just mention page 15, because it's basically a 2-panel page, but what he's done is within a single and large 2/3 of the page panel, he has Superman fighting all of Toyman's toys. Yeah,
So if you look at 15, so you were looking at it on the
on the
app, but
iPad.
if you
Yeah.
look at it on the actual book, well, 15 and 16 were laid out very, very similar in terms
Oh,
of
yeah, they are. Yeah,
construct.
yeah.
So it's not done as a two-page spread, but
It
again,
works
it
that way.
just keeps you going. The top line panels are kind of going, here's the story. And then the bottom panels are going, it's fighting. Superman's
Yeah,
got to fight all the robots. And then the toys fight the other toys, and all this is like, it's happening, it's happening. And again, it just creates an energy, just creates
yeah.
a whole buzz around
I kind of get a
that
sense that's
side.
something he did a lot, Swan. That page 15 kind of
Mm,
it is essentially 6 panels, but all stuck in one image. So you
yeah,
scan it as if it's a continuous fight, in the way across the page. But I remember him doing that quite a lot, and I like it. I really do. Like you say again, though, no backgrounds, but there's so much work put into that page. You don't want a background,
well,
do
it
you?
doesn't need it.
No.
No, it doesn't need it at all in terms of that. If we're talking art, there is one minor thing I do need to call
Right.
out with
Okay.
regard to page 9,
Okay.
right? Which you did share with me as well, and then I spoiled it for you. Where so page 9 is the first time we properly meet the elves,
Yeah.
who have a look about them. They're very I was going to say Willy Wonka. It's not. Yeah, but it's more the fact that
They're like the character
um
from that Leprechaun movie.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a But it's also the fact that, I remember Santa and reindeer. I don't necessarily remember Santa and camels. But
He is a weird shape from the knees upwards, isn't he? Santa there.
so yeah, no, Santa certainly has a camel toe, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Just with the way it's drawn, it's one of those things. Wow, once you see it, you can't
It
unsee it.
also, if we, in this theory where you put a cross on the page and what draws your eyes at the centre of that cross, that is exactly what's in the middle of the page is his balls,
Yes,
or the
it's
lack
just
of them.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
But so
It's
yeah,
also another strange one where Superman's underneath the blanket and his leg doesn't quite work for me in that one. It's
you know what? That's one of these things where it's probably right, but because it's right, it looks wrong.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those sort of weird ones.
Yeah.
Um, well, as I say, I've got the original book. All right, so I've got the book rather than reading it on the app. All right, I've read it on the app as well. And all I can say is that I've got the joy of all the adverts. So I can order up a shark tooth pendant on a chain.
Nice.
I can get my high school diploma. I can order up and I know you really want these, the Warlord toys.
Yeah, I do. I have
So you
actually
want
searched for them on eBay a number of times because there's a
um,
Hercules Unbound, isn't there? One.
yes, yes. But the other thing is to say it's got both a letters page, which I miss letters
Yeah.
pages. I really do. I mean, we'll never get them back. But it's also got Meanwhile,
Yeah.
which was so Denny O'Neill had one for ages as well, in which was basically his thoughts that he did in the Batman books back. But this is a Dick Giorgiano one, which is Random Thoughts on the Convention Trail of 1983, and it's basically his story of all the different conventions that he'd been throughout
Oh
1983.
wow.
And you're like going, oh, over the time machine to go back
Yeah.
to see some of those where from Anaheim to New York to Philadelphia to Ottawa. San Diego gets thrown away as going, and there was a San Diego.
Right.
It's
Okay.
just that sort of thing where you're going, oh, yeah, it wasn't the main thing, it was just a thing. Um, Wichita. So yeah, which makes it a rounded, as again, it's like when you actually get the book, it's a rounded thing. And I'm very much of the view that the colours are a lot better
Yeah.
on newsprint than they are on the
Oh,
app.
undoubtedly, man. Yeah.
The
We,
backlighting
we
on
I
the
mean, we
app
did
is
a whole
phenomenal.
episode on the
Mm.
iPad app, didn't we? But it's just easier. I know it's
Oh,
terribly
oh,
lazy,
oh,
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
massively agree with you on that. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Let's talk a little bit about Toyman. I've got a couple of theories, apart from the fact he has
mhm.
my hair. First appearance, Action Comics 64, September 1943. So it goes back. Winslow Percival Shot is the current one. There's been three.
Yeah,
Not, he's no Luther, is he? But he does get used in different ways by different people. Now, I'd always thought he's there's a whiff of the sex offender about him, until I realised that Azzarello actually downright says it in Lex Luthor Man of Steel. He actually declares he's a registered sex offender, which seems a bit of an obvious go-to, and very Azzarello, to be fair. But is he the child abuser of the DC universe? What do you think? Or am I being too cynical? I mean, maybe perhaps at the start he wasn't, but is he now?
He is so this is the other thing as well with the DC universe. It's made up of villages that come together to form a city. And by that I mean that there's each of the rogues galleries for each of the major heroes. You end up with people who are very, very similar within it. So I would say he's the Pied Piper of the Superman element of this thing, or he's the Mad Hatter, which is so Pied Piper being the Flash villain, Mad Hatter being the Batman villain. Toyman is the counterpart within the Superman space. I don't know the choice for Wonder Woman's villains. I don't know her villain set well enough.
No, I can't think of one.
But yeah, that's where I would kind of go with that, and this is where sometimes there are issues with. Everyone goes, "Oh, the Batman characters are the villains of the broadest set," but the Shadows, the Flash's villain set and Rogues Gallery are the tightest knit in a different way because they all get on with it. But again, there's a lot of crossover similarities within those character sets for different things. What's the difference between Captain Cold and Mr. Freeze?
Yeah, exactly.
In any other universe, you go, well, you've created it once, you don't need to create it twice.
Yeah.
And that's why I would turn around and say that to me, Toyman is that Pied Piper piece. He's about saying, which is the character that can be used to mind manipulate, like the Mad Hatter, and can be seen to say, yeah, we'll get people to do things and just come along with us and stuff. It's sort of the Pied Piper piece. Now, because it's toys, I can see why you would end up going down the route that you have, and that people have kind of placed them in that space. I don't think that was necessarily the intention.
Not the start. Yeah.
Created or that. And I do think it probably is a little bit of that's the easy go-to. And the same with Mad Hatter. Recently they've done the whole thing about isn't it, where he keeps kidnapping young girls and calling them Alice.
But when you say Pied Piper, he's also the Pied Piper, in a way.
Yes.
Which is, I was saying, but he's the one that affects kids. He's the one that the crime will affect kids, kind of. That's his little angle, I suppose.
Yes. I'm not sure where we're going with this, but it clearly it's something weird one for that again, or is it just an Artful Dodger thing where he's doing the whole I'll get the kids to do all the works because they'll it's county lines, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nowadays where you're like, you do all the work because if you get arrested you'll only get 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, if I get arrested I'll get 10 years. So that's why they send the kids.
But if you got 20 DC villains and lined them up against the wall and you said which one's the child sex offender, you'd be it's the old thing, isn't it? If you look like a kiddie fiddler, you probably are one. Let's face it. Yeah.
I now see why you're so defendant when I turn around and say he looks like you.
Listen, I got better head than that, mate. I wouldn't get away with that jacket. I know some people in the small press who might get away with that jacket, and it ain't me.
Moving on, yes, because I know who you're talking about. So
right, good. So we've had that. Are you? Let's sort of be a bit more general about stuff. Are you a Christmas dude? Are you a lover of Christmas?
See, this is why I love getting together with you at Christmas, because I know that you are Mr.
Fucking
Christmas.
love Christmas. Love it.
I'm not anti-Christmas, but I'm not I don't get into it the same way as you.
Right.
It's weird, and it's partially being in a very privileged position of not having to. So I want for nothing is my thing. So it's like, what do you want for Christmas? I don't know. I don't need anything.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't mind getting socks. I was chatting to Dan about this yesterday. Love a pair of socks, mate. Yeah.
But for a lot, and it's again, it's like if for Mrs. H, I'm like, oh, you want that? Fine, there it is, type thing. And that's I know that I'm coming from a very privileged position, and I've got to the point with other family members where the young kids are at the point of going, their nieces, nephews, well, I don't know what you're into or what you need or what, so I'll just give you money. And it becomes a very, there's something really disappointing about that
Yeah.
in that weird way. Um, I recently managed to get, my boss turned, I had a big birthday recently, and I managed to get him a gift that really hit the mark and really,
Right.
and just lit up. And I was like, see, that's the joy you
Yeah,
want.
there is, mate.
That's it.
I love buying
And
people presents. Yeah.
well, if you know what I hate is I hate receiving tat.
Yeah.
Right? So here's a thing. And I'd say the year I got the Batmobile soap dish was the year I went, stop buying me Batman shit. Right? you know, or if I'd wanted it, I would have bought it for myself before now, right? Um, so I don't I don't dislike receiving tat. I don't like giving tat either. And so I want to give something where I'm like going, this means something, and or I think this has a, and it's often, as I say, that's not, oh, and here's Christmas, now's the time to do it. It's you do it in the moment of when it's there to be done.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think there's we've got Christmas tree up,
You got
I've got
yours
my
up
Batman
already.
and Super. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
You got a white Christmas tree, I'm gonna say.
No. So it's a nice green one, and it has many Batman and other comic character
Yeah,
related
me too, man.
ornaments hanging from it. So I've got
I'm
that.
starting the rumour that Dan's got a white Christmas tree and he watches football in full kit. But
Is that a pre-wired one as well? The
yeah.
Christmas tree. One of these ones where
Yeah.
you don't, yeah.
Yeah, no ornaments, just white Christmas tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
To their own, right? That's all I'm going to say. And there are some houses around us at the moment who are, every year I'm like going, so you've got another set of lights for the outside of your house. At what point, we're not quite on the flight path, but we're not far away from the Edinburgh Airport's
right.
flight path. And I'm like going, you're going to bring a plane down because they're going to think that's the actual landing strip right there, because your house is that bright. I know. So it's it will just be the four of us for Christmas. Me with my me, Mrs. H, and the parents. So again, it's quite quiet.
Yeah.
And as I say, they're at an age now where you feed them and leave them.
Yeah, it's good. I'm like that. I'm that
You
age.
know.
Yeah.
And but no, we go to theirs, feed them, leave them, come back and go, right. We really, let's crack open that bottle of something nice
Nice, good stuff.
and get on with it.
Well, let's talk about 2023. Come on in. Let's. So,
2023.
pardon me,
Right.
2024. Bloody hell, man! What's happening to me? The
I said to you at the start of this, it's been a year.
I know. Let's talk about the year that's been, and I thought I'd dig you out for a couple of or a few of your favourite choices, favourite comics of the year. I'm going to say Batman Dylan Dog's one of them. Am I right?
Yes, was that this year? There we go. I know this is, and Vince said this on ACP this week as well, didn't he? About
Yeah.
trying to think what year was certain things in. Yes, that would have been really early on this year. That, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. There was and again, I had fun hunting down the hardcover in French. I think it was. I got it in the end.
I mean, technically, it's 3 years old
so,
because it came out. It's a reprint, isn't it? But for English language, I suppose. Yeah.
so it was great. Other things I've really enjoyed this year. DC, so obviously, primarily just been DC. I've been reading this year because of the way things are, and that's not entirely true. Actually, there's a couple of big books. Anyway, but the DC continuity titles for me have so gone off the rails.
Right.
Batman and Tech are, now that they've just gone through the all in.
Yeah, we just had a changeover, haven't we?
It's actually picked up a little bit.
Little tiny bit for me.
That was coming
Yeah.
out. But the detective stuff that was prior to that was impenetrable.
Oh, the
right?
Ram V stuff, and I like Ram V as a writer.
Yeah.
I just think it was just
And
muddy.
the covers were beautiful.
Yeah.
But the actual story, I was like, I have absolutely
No, me neither.
concept what's going
Yeah.
on here. So there's been a bunch of miniseries that come out from DC or one shots and stuff that I've really enjoyed. DC from the Vaults, Robin Lives. If you were there, if you were there or thereabouts for the original Death of Robin,
Yeah.
or Jason Todd, I'm going to really recommend that series to you. Right?
I've not read that actually. Okay.
It's again, it's worth picking up the issues because they kind of produce it in newsprint. So
Okay.
you're like going because it's meant to be a four. These are the four issues that happen next if you had like. So
Okay.
they've
Interesting.
redone the thing previously where going, oh, this is the issue. Oh,
Yeah.
actually, he lived, he didn't die. But this is kind of the four issues that would have happened next. And it's written with the same sort of sensibilities and it's drawn in the same sort of style as it was happening in the late 80s. So it has a real nostalgic feel about it. Does the final page land? There's a bit of me that initially went no, and then I went, you know what? That's exactly what they would have done
Okay.
way back in the 1992. That's exactly what they would have done.
Ah.
Um, and you're like, oh, I hate myself for saying I dislike it, but I love it because I dislike it because that I would have been annoyed at the time and I'm annoyed now.
Okay. I'll give that a go.
So I highly recommend that. Um, then there's another book that DC have done called I Know What You Did Last Crisis, which is another one of these mini anthologies of 7, 8 stories, whatever it is, each one lasting about 6 or 7 pages type thing, where it starts with Crisis, moves on to Millennium, moves on to Legends, moves on to Darkest Night,
Nice work.
Final Crisis, and it
Yeah.
does all of them as it goes through. And it's a story set from the point of view of another character. So I think the Crisis one, for example, is a Batgirl story
Okay.
of her while the wave is coming across Earth. Insert number here, big thing. Um, and the thing is, you're like, you've gone, if you've read comics as long as we have, you've gone through all the big events,
Yeah.
and you forget, I know they all merge into one, and to the extent that I never even bothered with things like death metal or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
I
Me
was
neither.
like, I'm not even
Actually.
not
Yeah.
even touching it. But this book again, it was one of the, it's a really sort of nostalgic pull because you're like going, oh yeah, I do remember that event at the time, and yeah, this story fits into there. Oh, and I enjoyed that event, or I didn't enjoy it, or I didn't, and it actually helps you go, yeah, there's a lot of diminishing returns here that you just keep. Here's another event, and but each of the mini stories is quite good in its own right, and is positioned within the story of the event, and it
I'll
helps
give that a go as well. I've
show
not read
some of
that
the
either.
differentiation of the event. So I would again, it's not a book to give to somebody. It's a book to
Yeah.
only read if you've gone through it all.
If you're us. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and it's old man comics for old men.
I enjoyed
For old
Millennium.
people. But
You just mentioned Millennium. It brings it
yeah,
back to me. I need to see if there's an omnibus of that. Joe Staten, wasn't it? Joe Staten.
uh,
Joe Staten. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, it's old man hunters and
Yeah, I like the
stuff.
old man
There's
none of the
all,
stuff. I know
and
Pete's been
there
talking about
was
that.
then there was Legends as well, which is also about the same sort of time.
Yeah, yeah. I've got the
Um,
omnibus of that, Legends. Yeah,
the other one they do that's at that point, Invasion.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
which yeah, again, these are the I remember that. So again, I think that's a good pull on from that thing. Um, Other things that are kicking around at the moment that are quite good. The return of Long Halloween.
Yes,
Again, it's
I've
only really
got the. I think it's it first 3 or 4 issues that ready to read. I haven't
so
read them yet.
first. So there's 3 issues, but also they reissued the one shot that they did way back because essentially
Right,
it's Tim Sale that actually did it, which was kind of the precursor for what it was going to be before Tim Sale sadly passed.
right.
So there are kind of and it you do need to read that.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, we've talked Long Halloween in the past,
yeah. I'm
but
gonna say.
this
Also gonna say for you, the Mark Waid, Chris Somney, Batman Robin book.
it's yeah,
Really good. Yeah,
it's good. Yeah. My fear there is how far can they take that?
yeah.
Like,
That's a 12. That's a 12
well,
issue series for me. I think
mm,
they should just do it and walk
yeah.
out. Yeah.
If you want an ongoing, you're probably not reading Poison Ivy.
I'm
It's
not.
better than
Yeah, I like
better
G.
than
It's G
Poison.
Willow Wilson, isn't it? That one.
Yep.
I
Yep.
like her writing.
Uh,
I know Swamp Thing was in it
um,
just now, wasn't he?
no, that's a one shot that
Right.
was
Okay.
unrelated, which is all right.
Right.
But no, they have moved Ivy into Swamp. She's living with Solomon Grundy and things like that, and it's um
The art
Yeah,
looks
so no,
nice from what I've seen.
it's yeah, and the story's okay.
I'll
I
give it
would
a go
say
on the app, that one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then the other big thing I read this year, which again was from way back in the day, was The Ring, Wagner's The Ring by P. Craig
Oh,
Russell.
yeah, yeah.
I read that when I was in the States at a family wedding.
Did Mignola
Sorry, during the
have something
holiday.
to do with that? Did Mignola ink it or something? Is that right? Am I imagining that? I can't remember now. Who wrote it?
Um, Wagner. No, it's P. Craig Russell, but is there not Charles Vess involved in it as well?
Yeah, that rings a bell. Yeah,
I'm not gonna look it up.
yeah,
So
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
that was, but that's a proper nostalgia thing again because that originally came out back in the day.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
yeah. And
Nice
it
work,
was
man.
I managed to get the hardcover collection of it for some again I think for pennies somewhere, and they were really going, yeah, I'll have that, I'll give that a go.
Nice.
So no, that's kind of been this year of what's well, I think it's been good.
Yeah.
Um, or things that have tickled me. A bunch of other mini-series and one-shots. As I say, Dark Age, Batman Dark Age by Allred and Mark Russell
Okay.
is weird as, but
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's a good Elseworld.
Are you reading the Absolutes?
Yeah, well, I'm reading Batman Absolute. Is the one
Right.
I've read. I've not read the others.
Three's about to come out as we record, I guess. So around about the time soon. It's okay.
There are again, I maybe they'll stick the landing. That's the thing. I don't know where they're going with
Yeah.
all of these that the absolute universe. Where is it? What do they do with it? Right. Um, and that's where I'm like going, yeah, we've got some really great mini-series elseworldly things kicking around where people are going, I'm going to go tell a story because I found one. The Mike Allred Dark one, the long Halloween stuff. Again, you're going, we've got a story, we're going to tell it. It's a mini-series, bang,
Yeah.
done. Great, love that. Um, but when you then turn around and go, actually, this is an ongoing, does that work?
Yeah, I don't
Wait
know.
and see.
Unless they've got some big plan to roll out trades through a different avenue of distribution or something like that, then it might hit. I've already given up on the Superman comic. I didn't buy issue 2 this week, which is unusual. Although I'm not really reading Superman at the moment. I've kind of gone off him a bit. So I'm not really on any of the monthlies for Superman at the moment, which makes a change. I've been on those for years, but yeah, Batman's okay for the art. I'm enjoying it for the art more than anything, I think.
Yeah. But and that's well, what's different from that from the White Knight stuff that
Yeah,
Murphy and Sean Murphy did and stuff like that.
yeah,
Because it looks the bits that I'm like going, I can see that you're being inspired by that in terms of how you've gone.
I get you. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
Interesting. Good stuff,
yeah.
man. What have you got planned? I know obviously Penguins come to an end. Have you got any plans to do much else? Are you having a little sort of
So
creative rest for a bit, or
Penguins is an end. It's in syndication.
yeah,
So publish it most days through whatever social media looks like nowadays. In 1,001 places, which was one of the reasons I gave up in the first place. I did one show this year, weekends back in Dunfermline, the day it
yeah,
snowed, which was fun. And it was interesting because it re-highlight I was the highs and lows of standing behind the table and going, somebody coming looking at your books and buying and loving it and buying it. And you go, oh, that's nice. And then waiting an hour and a half for somebody else to turn up. Um, going, why am I bothering with this? I wasn't quite that bad, but it did sort of re-emphasize to me about going, this isn't the fun bit. This
yeah,
isn't,
yeah, yeah,
this in some ways it is because I was speaking to people I hadn't spoken to in ages and all that, in terms of the other creators just getting together. But there was a lot of the rest of it. I'm just nah. But no, my creative itch is struggling, and I've done very little. I did a painting the other night when we had
On the
the
Drink Draw, you
drinking
did a
draw,
Wonder Woman, very
and
nice. Yeah,
that was one of the first things I'd done in a long, long time. But life has just been a time thief at the moment,
yeah,
and taking stuff away from me in one way or another between family commitments and juicy. Getting the endorphins of running on the treadmill. So
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, because I'm a runner at the moment as well, is it gives you loads of time to have come up with great ideas on the running machine, but then I don't seem to have the time to carry them through afterwards. Yeah,
things as well. At least if you're out, you do your outdoor running, so you can at least shout into your microphone on your phone and to say, right, I'm going to record this idea down. My problem is, if I'm in the gym, as soon as I come off the machine and go, what was that idea again?
yeah,
I can't get to the point of typing it up. So,
yeah.
unless I'm doing the sit down bike where I'm leaning back going, oh yeah, I can type these things up while I'm doing.
You're always
Yeah.
filming yourself in the gym, aren't you? Doing reps and that sort of thing, I guess, for your influencer account.
Well, if you've not found it yet, then I'm just
Bending over to
disappointed.
pick things up. Oh,
It's you know,
well, maybe. Do you think?
well,
I think it's just a blip, man. Don't you? It's gonna be
well,
back.
look,
Yeah,
something needs to come, and you know what? It'll be somebody will set up a charity anthology or something, and I'll be like, "Oh, I really have to get my finger out and actually do it, and it'll be something like that. But so, but the spirit moves you, the spirit moves you,
yeah,
and
yeah. We're not
yeah,
we're not reliant on
uh,
deadlines. It's not our job. It's like that, isn't it?
and as I say, it's got to be for fun. And I want to get back into going to conventions and things and just being on the other side of the table and wandering around going,
Yeah,
yeah. And by the way, I'm going home now because I've had enough.
yeah,
Yes, you
exactly.
can.
You can go to the pub and look through your pile of comics that you bought with your mates, and then think, I'll go
Yeah,
back in just for another hour, buy a couple more
mm,
things. It's like that. I like doing that.
yeah, yeah. Or, it's been a while. No, and as price of some of the going to some of these events now is just utter
It's a
madness.
nonsense, isn't it?
You know,
We've talked about one
um,
that's a nonsense. We won't repeat it here, but yeah, some of the prices to get in to buy stuff has gone silly.
it's yeah, and that's where can I give a shout out to La Belle Adventure,
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I know you and
which
Cannon
is
both speak highly of it.
the Edinburgh French comic shop. Um, I it's one of these ones. The businessman in me goes, I don't know how long it will survive. However, they are doing all of the right things. They've set up reading clubs. They are involved with the French Institute in terms of doing presentations through them. They're doing um, all sorts of promotional activity left, right, and centre. And they did very well with their connection with the Lakes Festival.
Okay, that's good to know.
Um, the again doing all the right things about it was that simple stuff like going, who's signing next? Fine, I'm going to plant all that stuff on the at the front of the table so people go, oh, I'll just buy one of these and go get it signed.
Yeah,
And you're going, that's simple. Well, yeah, I know you have your issues with various comic shops where you're going, that's what you should do.
yeah, I
And
know.
if you walk into their shop at any point in time, you immediately met with a smile and a hello, and it's all that
That's
sort of
nice.
stuff.
Yeah,
I don't expect to know me from Adam, but they kind of like, yeah. And they're like that with everybody. So no, I want to give them a shout out and hope they go from strength to strength for the
good
next wee
stuff,
while.
man. So let's round off. So, where can we find you online, Geezer?
You can still search for Penned Guin on any form of social media, and you'll find something.
Good stuff. So, have a great Christmas, everyone. Al's given you a load of books you can pick up there. I'm going to pick up at least a couple of them. And we'll probably see you in the new year.
Yes.
Cheers, man.